Finally tagged this last week. Actually tagged a few different releases on my way back from Laracon AU. Huge 15-hour flight, so had plenty of time to kind of be messing around with this. So tagged a version 1 and then realized it was an old version of Laravel where I started the project, so bumped that up. And then kind of started working on some different things, and I think version 0.3 was really kind of the main push where I saw some people actually downloading and trying it out. So got some good feedback here, and we're just going to keep like iterating on this. To that point about feedback and so forth, if you have ideas or whatever, definitely open an issue. You can see that I've opened a few here. Someone opened one about the soft deletes, which I already added. So I'm trying to be pretty active with these. I will say, unless you were just like super sure about how to write the code or have been watching all of these live streams, I would start with an issue at this point in time just because I have a lot of vision about where I want to make this go and what I want the code to kind of do for kind of a version 1. So I'm going to be a little bit picky about pull requests. So that's not to say don't do one, but you can kind of see that I'm closing them and kind of adding things my way. I don't want anybody to like waste their time just yet because again, I kind of got a lot in my head about where I want Blueprint to go, and because of that, I'm kind of being a little bit strict about PRs until the version 1's out there. So if you have ideas, definitely open an issue. If you really feel like you can implement the code and kind of have been following along and heard me say, oh, I want to build that, you're welcome to open PR. But just don't be upset initially if I close some of those. So to those that joined, if you could just shoot me something in the chat, just let me make sure audio and stuff's coming across okay, and we'll go ahead and get started. So let's see here. I've got Blueprint up and running. Let's close all that down. There we go. Cool. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out a new branch for the controller Lexer. And let's just make that. Let me just make sure all the tests and everything are passing. Okay, great. Okay, so we're in a good place here. And what I want to do is build out the controller Lexer. And so we already have this model Lexer here before. So if we take a look at the Lexers, the model Lexer is the only one. And that was kind of the thing that I ultimately turned into an object and made it, parse, well, not parse, but lex, perform analysis. I think it's like lexical graphic analysis on those tokens to kind of turn that into, effectively in our case, like a little bit of a data object that kind of lets me know, okay, this thing uses soft delete and this thing has timestamps, and here are all the columns, which was another object just for simplicity. So basically, just at a high level, we're going to drive this out with tests, but I want to start doing something really similar for the controllers. So if we look at like that sample YAML, so far we've done nothing other than just parse this controllers bit. So I really want to make like a controllers object. It has methods, or I guess in Laravel terms, actions, which would be index and store. And then within that, there's going to be these, I think right now I'm just kind of, in my head, I'm calling them statements. So a controller has methods, which has statements. So just very, programmer terminology there to just kind of, pack everything together. So I don't think we'll get as far as lexing the statements today, but I think if I can pull out what the controllers have been parsed and turn that like raw array into some objects with some properties and some things like get methods and all that kind of stuff, it's going to make life really easier later in the week when we start to build more of the generators. So ideally, kind of just going back to the README file here just to kind of a really loose roadmap. From these controller definitions, I want to like make a controller. I want to potentially make form request objects based on what kind of statements are able to be made. Maybe a form request is made. So like if you use the validate statement, it's going to go ahead and generate a form request with the things you said to validate. If you say something like send, I think we're going to generate this mailable if it doesn't exist. Job, same thing. If you queue something, it's just going to queue up that job. If the job doesn't exist, it's going to make the job. And then a view stub, of course, if you do some kind of render, it'll make this post-index view just a stub, nothing we're not going to get into generating UI, at least not for version 1. So I think once these things are done, that's going to be my marker for version 1. So again, all the rest of the stuff can be generated from these controller statements. So let's jump in today, drive this out, this Lexer out, and start getting a feel for like the basic things I'm going to need for that controller object. So I heard some messages come across, so let me fire it up. Okay, cool. Everybody's hearing me all right? Good. I don't have to repeat all that. Okay, so let's get into the code. Looks like we got a few people watching today, more than usual, so that's good. I saw a lot of traction on Twitter from this. I think the little demo video that I put out got like 4,000 views, which is pretty good for me. That's like all of my followers watching it. So pretty exciting. Okay, let's see here. Let's try to do a little bit more, be a little more strict about driving things out with tests. So let's make a new PHP test, unit test, and we'll call this Controller Lexer. And I have no idea why it just called it C test. What the hell, PHP Storm? I love you so much. All right, let's fix this. Controller Lexer test. Part of that's probably my fault, to be fair, because this looks like a really, really old template. So let's do this. Let's change this to test case, not that old school PSR 0 that the framework used like 5 versions ago. The PHP unit framework, that is. Okay, cool. So we have this controller Lexer, and let's just kind of take a quick peek back at this model Lexer because I probably want to kind of mimic what's going on here. So let's just start with a real simple test here. Let's do the same thing. Let's return nothing or no syntax tree when there aren't any controller tokens. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of copy pasta this guy here, and we'll start to change things up. So we're not going to be subject in this case. So let's change this to be a new bit here. So we're going to make a new controller Lexer. And let's change this to a controller Lexer, and that's going to be our first failure, of course, because we don't have this. So we could, again, be real strict, go back here, run this, see that the blueprint Lexer's controller Lexer is not found. It's an error, which is a failure. So by TDD standards, that's a failure. Let's make it pass. Let's dump this into the controller Lexer, make sure that went in the right spot. Looks like it did. Cool. Run this test again. And we don't have this analyze method. Okay. So let's go down here and make analyze. Or well, first of all, let's make this a field. And now we should be able to generate this analyze method. Awesome. And I think we called it a tree or tokens, maybe. I just want to be symmetrical. There we go. So let's call this tokens. And it's going to return an array. And this is just kind of some symmetry there. Okay, so must be type array, nothing returned. So let's return an empty array. And now we're back to our failure, which is a good failure in this case. So we're past all of the simple little stuff here. So let's split the screen. And let's close all in group. No, that's not what I wanted. Let's split this again. There we go. Okay, so implementation on the right, test on the left. Okay, so I don't want this to be called models, so little copy paste issue there, but I wanted to give us a kickstart. So this is controllers. Let's run this again. Okay, cool. So we're not getting anything back here. So simplest thing to do is just return an empty array for controllers. And we're back to green. Great. And let me just limit this down to just this file. That way we can focus on just our failures, even though everything else is passing. Just a little bit of speed there. Okay, so I think what I want to do now is probably start to make this a little bit more interesting. So let's go back and look at that models generator and just kind of see, whoops, models Lexer. Model Lexer test. Where were you? Model Lexer test. There you are. Okay, it returns nothing, so we got that. It returns models. Um, cool. So this is a pretty large one. So let's just recreate this together. No more copy pasta. So let's do at test, and let's say public function. It returns controllers for, what did we say? Tokens example? Just nothing. It returns controllers. It's kind of a weak name. I could do better than that. That's all right though. We'll keep going. Okay, so I think what we did here is we brought in some of our own tokens. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if I want to do that or not. Uh, but yeah, I guess so. Let's just do it the hard way first. We'll feel the pain. It's good to feel the pain because then we can figure out, how we want to make it better. So let's just call this something like post controller, and this should give us some more actions in here, or methods as we're calling them. So we'll just say this is index, and this in turn will have some kind of statements. So here probably gets something like query. Just looking at our example, this was like all posts, and then we should have something like render, and this should return posts index or post index, I forgot. And then posts. Let's go look at our sample YAML. Yeah, so I'm just kind of mimicking this, and I call it with post. So I just want to keep all this syntax for now. We can parse all that later, but for now, let's just do this, and let's do another one. Let's just do show here, just a real kind of generic one. And I hear some comments coming across. I'll check those here in just a sec. Okay, so same thing here. Let's do query. You know what? I kind of like find. I'm messing around with like some of these tokens in my head. So let's do find, and let's do something like post ID or something like that. Or maybe even just ID. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm just kind of messing around. This might not even be eventually real syntax, but we'll see. We'll do post show, and then with post. Do something like that. Okay, cool. And then I want to mimic this with another controller because we did say that we would want multiple controllers. And so that is here. That's good. So let's do something else. Let's do something like a comment controller. And we'll just do a real simple one-liner here. We'll just do like an index and query comments, all comments, and let's do comment index and comments. Cool. All right, let me check these comments. I see some stuff coming across. True programmers test directly in production. No, there's too much at stake here. This is like my first major open source project. It's gotta be clean. Cool. Okay. All right, I think this is enough here to probably start sending that across. So what we probably want to do here now is let's get actually what was returned here. And I call this actual just as like some terminology. So a lot of the times when you're working with tests, you make assertions, and assertions verify that the actual thing is the expected thing. So I tend to use these terminology here. So you see me use like subject already, so the subject under test, or the subject analyze, and then tokens. And this is going to return the actual thing or the resulting tree, and then I want to perform some comparisons on this. So the first things first here, just to kind of start us off, a simple test that will fail is let's do an assert count 2 on actual controllers, right? All right, cool. So this thing should now have 2 objects inside of it, right? So 2 controller objects eventually is what we're going to be after. So let's just start here because we know this is going to fail. So we have a failure, failed asserting that actual size 0 matches expected size 2. All right, fair enough. So let's do this. Let's bring in these tokens. We've got this thing parsed out. Let's see here. What's the simplest thing that we could do to probably make this pass? I'm going to do something a little nasty here just for giggles. Let's do array keys on tokens. Boom. Look at that. Such a jerk. When I used to pair with people in TDD, like they would do things like this, my pair would just do the simplest thing that can possibly make it work. And this seems really, really dumb if you're not used to it, but it's kind of nice because it really forces you, from a TDD perspective, to like write a test that makes me go where I want to go. Like otherwise, we might have just said something here like new controller and just jumped ahead, and we're just kind of not there yet. So, you know, this is legitimate to work and make most of these tests that we have pass. So we could probably even have done something a bit simpler, but this is just to kind of exemplify like the fact that just the simplest thing that works. And it's not just about testing too. Like it's also for me, like it's about kind of practicing Yagni, like doing that simplest thing, like not jumping ahead, not pre-architecting, like not making all these random objects and patterns. Like this really forces me to write like really, really simple code, which I think is good. I can always refactor later, especially once I have all these tests. So like, I don't know, it works for both sides, I think. So it's pretty nice. Okay, so what we could do now, again, let's just kind of like steal away from this. So we say something like it's an array. That's fine. That seems a little redundant. And then here we actually start getting into something here where again it demonstrates that hey, we're gonna go in and we're gonna pull that post controller and we're gonna start treating it like an object. So again, these are gonna be the things that make me jump ahead. So let's do that. So let's do this. What do we want to do here? This assert equals. Um, so what do we want here? This is a name. So let's do that. That's just simple enough. So this thing's post controller. So it should be its name. So when we get, do we var this off? Yeah, that'll probably make life easier. Let's var this off. Controller equals actual controllers. Whoops. Actual controllers post controller, and then that should be good. So that's going to give us the controller object, which we don't have yet. But this might be enough to fail, to be honest. But I'm going to push ahead just a little bit. And then so now we can say controller name, and this is going to drive us straight to that object-oriented kind of bit that we want. So there's no name on null, so let's start making this be something, a little bit more real. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a tree, and I am going to take this up here and take this out, and let's just put this back to the way it was and put it back to tree. And now we can do like a for each for our tokens underneath controllers, because we know those already exist, or they should exist, right? No, they don't. That's nasty. That should be under controllers. So issue number 1 there. We'll have to fix that. Okay, so this as controller or definition, maybe? I'm not sure. Let's do definition. What did I do in models? Model Lexer. Name and definition. Okay, that's nice. That's close enough. Name and definition. Cool. Okay, so we have everything we need there, and let's now do something like we can say we're going to make a new controller here. So we can say controller equals new controller. Let's go ahead and make one of these. And I don't want that to be under Lexers. I just want that to be under source. I'm probably going to make a models directory here pretty soon. Oh, PHP Storm. So lovely. There we go. Cool. All right, let's bring this back off. And then now in our tree, we're going to go under controllers and we're going to store a, what is this? The name is equal to this controller. And let's new this up with the name. We should already have that anyways, so let's fix that. What's wrong with you? Change signature, yes, do it. Okay, so we have this name. It should definitely be a string. Let's just go ahead and type hint that up. And let's turn this into a field. And let's generate a getter. And I don't like to use the get and set, so let's just do that. And let's take this off. There we go, cool. So pushed ahead pretty far there. Let's kind of see where we landed. Okay, invalid supplied yes, okay, and that's because we need to nest this. So let's do controllers equals an array of things. And I hear some comments coming across. Let's check those out. It would fail before assertion if that array would, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we jumped ahead a little bit on the this bit here. I'm just going to start practicing it a little bit faster so we can get to where we want to go within like the 45 minutes that I like to make these in. Okay, invalid argument. What do we have here? Controllers. What's wrong with you, tokens? Okay, let's see what's happening here. Line 13, definitely here. What's your issue? Controllers. Parsed that out as a name and a definition. What's wrong with you? Let's just, when in doubt, var it out, right? Let's see what's going on with tokens. So controllers, I think I spelled that right. Okay. Tokens, controllers, as name value. That should be fine. What's wrong with you? Invalid argument supplied for each. What am I missing here? That's weird. We just return the registry. I called it registry there. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of a little optimization. Shouldn't be a problem there. Oh, it is a problem for the first test. It returns nothing when no. Okay, so I see why I did this now. Okay, so I was thinking about the wrong test here. All right, let's do this. So first of all, that's not the tree, so let's call this a registry. Just to keep it consistent, and let's change this to controllers. So all the naming was right. There we go, cool. Okay, so all the naming was right. It was the first test that was failing because this token didn't exist. So this is just a little fail-safe there that we want to return. Okay, so what's next? Let's keep pushing through and start getting the methods. So let's do assert count on is 2 when I get the controller methods. So this should return all the methods, right? Okay, so nothing fancy here. So what I could do is maybe do something. So we see undefined methods. Let's go ahead and fix that. Let's put it over here. So we've got a method. So public function method. Oh, that's funny. As an array. All right, cool. Methods, sorry. Okay, methods must be of type array, none returned. All right, so let's just return blank just to get this. Okay, so now we're failing the size to be 2. So let's get this the way we want. Okay, so if you make a controller, do I even want to store it? That's kind of an edge case. I'm wondering, like, do I even want to make a controller until I know it has actions? But I'm not going to worry too much about that just yet. So let's just do another for each. Again, I'm not too worried about the code here. You know, this isn't 100% pretty, but it's not the end of the world. So this thing's going to have a definition, and this should be method and then statements is what we should have in here. And just for giggles, I'm going to var dump this method out, just to make sure we're on the right track. Show an index. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we're in the right spot here. Okay, so now what I would want to do is probably something like controller add method, like method. So I probably want to do something like that. Now, of course, this doesn't exist yet, and this method is not so simple. You know, it's going to need the statements. So it's kind of like I want to add the method by name with the statements. It's probably what I'm going to want to do. So let's just do that. Let's just do this for now. We don't necessarily have a test for it. So you know what? In fact, because we don't have a test for it, I'm going to back this off just a little bit. And we're just passing method for now. So let me add method, and we're going to need some kind of tracking here. This will be a string and the name. And so what we'll do is we'll just do something for now like this methods, just throw it on there. Name. There we go. Let's add a field, and we'll make that empty. Whoops, empty. Hello, empty to start with. All right, cool. And let's run this test and see if we pass. So we're still not asserting that, and that's because I'm returning an empty array here. So now that we have this methods, let's return what we want, and we're passing again. Okay, so we know that we're storing both methods. So now we can get a little more picky here, and we can say something like method controller. Let's get these methods back. So let's do that. Let's get methods. Methods equals. We're going to pull both the methods off. So first of all, methods should be 2. And then we should be able to start asserting within this. So now we can say something like this. Assert equals. And then I would expect the first method to be index. Right? Yeah. Index. And, how would we get that? Methods. It's like a key. I don't really want to have to make a method object. It just feels weak to me. It would just be a collection of statements, and I just don't think it's that bad for the controller to keep track of those. But I'm going to want to know that method name somehow. I could store it here just to spike for a second, so I could do something like this. And then, of course, eventually statements. But how could I easily get access to that? I mean, I'd have to do something kind of strange here, like key methods. I think you can do something like that. This gets like the current key. Fetch a key from an array. Yeah, it's like the current object. So then I'd have to like advance it, which is kind of funky. Don't know what I want to do here. I could destructure it. That's kind of interesting. I could do that. I could do something like name statements, destructure it, where it's like methods, like current methods or something. I don't even know. Can you do that? What does current do? Return the current element. Yeah, see, that's the element. I don't think you can destructure something that way. If anybody knows, let me know. It'd be cool though if like I could get the key and the value out of this thing. Like this is like a key value pair, but I kind of want like direct access at that key. So anyways, I'm gonna move on with key for now. But this is a little bit ugly. Cool. All right, and then so let's just go back to where we were. So we have name, and then I would want to make sure that the next one was show, and I guess call key again. That's kind of weird. See, I think I'd have to say like next for that to work, right? Let's just find out. So failed asserting that 0 matches index. Okay, so now the issue, I think the simplest thing to make this pass would just be to do this. Okay, and so now, yeah, when I go to that next one, show is not going to work. So I'd have to do something like next methods. And now we're just getting ugly. Yeah, so this works, but it needs to be a little bit cleaner. Let's see if there's any comments from peeps. No help from the audience just yet. I'm trying to think of a way to destructure those methods. Let's just try it. Name statements equals methods. Let's see what happens here. And let's call this name. Does it destructure? No, that's not how it works. All right, let's Google it. Get key and value from array. Get both key and value from the array. How can we do it? No, I don't want to loop. Yeah, see, they're doing key and current. It's kind of ugly. All right, well, you know what? I'm going to play on with this whole next craziness. Let's just go back. Okay, so then I would probably also want to say this assert equals, and this would be the current methods, and these are going to be the statements. And so for now I'm just going to steal the same statements. Let's just get those stored in there, because that's probably going to be a task for a different day. And let's do the same thing down here. So let's do those same show bits. Pink. Cool. And let's change this to current. All right, let's see if this passes, which it won't. So index does not match type array on line 70, is that right? Yes, because index is here. Okay, so now we're going to want to actually pass in those statements. So let's just pass those in for now. And this will be statements. And this will be an array of statements. And there we have it. And this should pass. Nice. Okay, cool. So we're storing everything now. We built up this object. Let's go ahead and add the same thing for the next bit here. So let's pull this off a little bit more. And we know this is just a show, I think it was. And we don't need to do next. So this thing should be the comments controller. So comment controller. It should only have one method, and it should be show. And we called that what? We did a query of all comments. Or no, we only did index, my bad. So this should be index, and this should be that. So this should just auto pass. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that takes care of our entire definition. We're just not doing anything super fancy with these just yet. So let me check the comments, and let's slow down and do a little bit of refactoring for a minute. We could do this assert true array key exists. Yes, we could use assertions that the index key exists in that overall array, but we really want to match like pair for pair. Like I wouldn't want the statements from show to be assigned to index. So we couldn't use like a generic search like that. We have to be like explicit that the pairing of the index method has these statements. So I think this allows us to do that. I just think it's a little bit silly that I have to call next in here. So that's probably something I'll just noodle on my own. I don't want to get stuck. And if I find a cooler solution, I'll make sure to mention it in a future video. So I think to that point, we're probably at a stopping point for today. I think this is a fair spot to end on. We really just built this out. I think the tricky thing is going to be working on these statements. Because we're really not going to be able to generate anything until um, until these statements are in their own kind of little object land that's going to be easy to kind of pull those out on. So what I'm thinking about though, just to kind of think ahead, and for those that are watching, if you all get ideas before tomorrow's live stream, definitely share them, DM me, open an issue, just reply on the Twitter thread, whatever. But what I'm thinking here is like, what I'm thinking about is I don't necessarily want to build like a statement lexer. I think I probably just want this lexer to be a little smarter about this. So just to kind of spike this out for a second, there's going to be a finite amount of statements. Right now we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, that's not that many to be fair. So the point here is that I might just do some kind of like um, lexer built into the controller here that knows how to parse out these statements, or at most maybe a statement lexer, and then that is something that would return like these different type of objects. So I don't think I just want a statement, because what I'm getting at here is that each one of these really has a very specific syntax that it's going to have, and because of that I probably want it to have its own lexer so it can be kind of like validated, so to speak. It can be analyzed and confirmed that the syntax and the grammar of it's correct. But also having individual ones keeps me from making like this crazy kind of God object statement, like this all-encompassing statement class. Because think about query, right? Query is basically an eloquent query. So this one's really simple, all posts. But theoretically, like I want to be able to say something like where post.title, and also something else like where post title, and then where active. I have no idea. I'm just making some stuff up here. And then but there's also like an order by name, and take 5. Like theoretically, maybe not for V1, but you would be able to type like some very eloquent kind of terms here. And because of these keywords and like the difference between this statement and this statement, I do want some separation, but I think I'd rather spend the time separating them at the lowest level, meaning the statement level, than having the controller like having the lexer and controller for like each and every single one. So I want to balance both worlds. So I want to see what that looks like. But the point is like the to do here is to lex the statements into objects, and these would be like the statement objects. So I think that's what we're going to do probably in tomorrow's stream, and we won't necessarily do all of them. We'll get a feel for doing a few of them. But that way when the generator comes around, it's just the more work we do here, the easier the generator is, because I don't want in the generator to have to be like, okay, you said query statement, that means, let's parse this at the generator level. It's going to be a lot easier to hand the generator some kind of statement object, like a query statement object, and for it to be able to say like more intelligent things like, give me your where clause. Do you have an order by? Do you have, a limit? Do you have first or fail, or all those types of things? Same with render. It's going to be, give me the view to render. What are all the data pieces that it's expecting? So some of these objects are going to be really, really tiny, and some will be kind of big, like, query will probably be the largest. Maybe send might be a little crazy, but the rest of these will just be like key value pairs, right? So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Again, if you get any ideas, feel free to reply on the thread, DM me, open an issue if you got ideas of like new features to add to this. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow, same time, same place.